So now we're going to bring up Mr. Eric Brown, who is out of beautiful Central Virginia. He started with me, I think, earlier this year, correct? Yeah, can't believe it's just been a little less than a year now. Eric is a face-to-face final expense agent who started new with me, who had no experience in the insurance business prior. And the reason I'm having him come up here is to really kind of convey his first year experience, to give some perspective to those of you maybe getting started, kind of what Eric did right in his first year as a face-to-face final expense agent, and to kind of give you his tips and tricks and perspective on the business. Just to give you a little bit of a background on him, Eric roughly writes somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000 in final expense business monthly, predominantly using direct mail leads. He'll talk more about that. And without further ado, Eric, come on down. Thanks for being here. All right.
Good morning, everybody. It's good. Good morning. It's good to be here. My wife Janet is with me today, and she's back there. And she's been so supportive. She thought I was crazy, but she stayed married to me. When I got in the insurance business, I said, there'll be no paychecks. She said, no paychecks. I said, no weekly paycheck, but there'll be hopefully commission checks. And my assurance to her was I was confident enough that I could make it enough back to at least cover my expenses. I'm like, I can't guarantee you I'll be successful, but I'll at least be able to pay off what we put into the business. But as David said, I got my license in January, made my first direct mail lead sale March 2nd, quit my job 2 weeks later, and went full-time, kind of dove in. I'll kind of give you some background with I have some experience. My only experience in sales is with my dad's lumber company, and that's a whole different type of sale. It's business to business, dealing with, he's a producer, dealing with wholesalers. It's still people to people interaction, but it's not like what we do in final expense. There's some differences there. And I never really thought I was that good at sales. Never pictured myself as a salesperson, a salesman. And my experience with life insurance really began, I was a youth pastor, and I did a lot of grief work because they said I had good graveside manners. And I'm not sure what graveside manners is. I always viewed it like being a referee in basketball. If you're the center of attention, you're doing something wrong. And so when you're a pastor, if you're at the bereavement situation and you're the center of attention, you're doing something wrong. So a lot of times I just kept my mouth shut and smiled and, acted appropriately, and people like that. But my first real experience with life insurance, I got called out at 3 a.m, and I'm 26 years old. Senior pastor calls, and he says a gentleman had died. And I'm like, who is that? Because my mind couldn't grasp that this guy was gone. And he gave me the name. I go, who is he? And he goes to our church. He sits in the upper left. I was like, him? Yeah, he's gone. We need to go to the hospital. So we go to the hospital. Guy's 37 years old. His wife's 29 years old. We walk in, it's like the hallway. We look in the room, he's on a gurney, he's covered in a sheet, she's rubbing his hand. She sees us, she comes out, 29 years old, 4 children. The first words out of her mouth were, why didn't we have life insurance? That impacted me greatly. I didn't understand life insurance, didn't know a lot about it, but it became pretty real. And I think, whoops, somebody's trying to get in. I've had good success, but a lot of it, I think, goes back to that. I don't feel like I'm trying to sell anybody anything. I'm just trying to help them, get what they need, make sure they're covered. But I had that experience. And then as far as insurance went over the years, I had a great insurance agent in Northwest Ohio, Jeanette Heinze, and she was a model of what a great insurance agent should be. She served the community so well. And then I moved to Columbus, and I had an experience with a bad agent. He talked me into taking my life insurance away from Jeanette. He had a much better deal. He had like, you're going to qualify for this super saver rate. And I'm like, man, I'm 200 pounds. He's like, oh no, you'll be fine. He goes, once you do the medical, the premium will come down. Well, I did the medical, the premium didn't come down. I called the company and they said, no, you got to be 175 pounds for that rate. And I was like, well, I'm done with that guy. And I was a pastor at the church he attended. So I went back to Jeanette, where I used to live, and said, hey, I need life insurance again. And so she set me up. And I told everybody I knew, don't deal with that guy. He's not honest. But anyway, so that was my bad experience with life insurance agent and my good. But I never pictured myself as an agent. And my sister kept telling me, Eric, you'd be really good at life insurance. You'd be really good at life insurance. She was in the medical malpractice space. And she said, you'd be really good. And I was like, I don't know. Anyway, so long story short, I went to work for my dad's company about 9 years ago. He's quite successful. And my sister, who was running the company with him, she passed away of cancer and stayed in the company, but wasn't really happy. I've seen a lot of people make the mistake my age, staying in a father's company that might not be the best fit just because it's a family business. And was looking for a career change and hired a coach, a retired bank executive, and she was very successful and got into coaching, and hired her to help me. And I thought she would help me with all the, like putting your resume and doing all that stuff, and she didn't. She worked on me. She said, what do you want? And it took me 2 years to figure out what I really wanted. And so over 2 years, she worked with me also on my body, emotions, and language. She used the OR model. I'll give it to you real quick. You make an observation, you take an action, you get a result. If you don't like the result, you take another action. And in business, those actions are conversations. But she said, if you don't like the result you're getting, you can't just keep taking action. You got to go all the way back to your observer. How do you observe? And you change that through your body, emotion, and language. So she worked with me on that for 2 years. And really just, she was so patient because I was kind of stuck. But I put down what I wanted, and I started this job search and looked, and I had a couple really good offers in the lumber industry, but they didn't quite fit my conditions of satisfaction. And got connected to a really multi-level marketing insurance opportunity. They reached out to me on one of those job boards. And so I thought, it kind of appealed, but didn't seem quite right. And so I found David on YouTube and watched the videos. I kept watching videos and videos and videos. And I was like, I kind of like this guy. I like the way he thinks. It's not the multi-level marketing type thing. It's good commission. It's exactly what I want to do. And just kept investigating. That was like December 31st was when that company reached out to me, found David 1st of January. Went ahead and got my license the first 2 weeks of January, got contracted. We had a couple big ice storms, delayed us a little bit. And I was running one day. Call myself a runner, but I was running. And I thought, I'm going to practice on the lady who cuts my hair. I'm going to call her up and see if she'll let me do my presentation, because I was practicing the script. I was being a good student. Like, I really practiced that script a lot. Sitting in front, videoing, the whole thing. And so at first I'm like, I'm going to practice the script. And then I'm like, you know what? If she really needs final expense insurance, I'm going to sell her. I'm going to see if I can sell this or not. And so I did. I was like, we did the presentation, and she had some two terms that were going to end. She's getting ready to hit 60. And at the end, I said, Franny, you really need this? I forget how I closed, but I did a close, and she said, can I think about it? I was like, no, Franny, you can't. I go, if you don't make a decision today, you're going to wait all year. You're going to get involved with your grandkids. You're going to hit 60. You're not going to make a decision. You need to make a decision, yes or no, today. Now, I'm not sure if that's the right thing, but that's how I kind of handled it. And she goes, and she kept him on. I said, well, what's the deal? You know, where's your hang up? And it was price. You know, we had gone through the script and found her price point, but her actual emotional where she wanted was a little lower. So we dropped down and got her coverage. And honestly, I went home and felt guilty. Like if you ask what emotion I felt, it was guilt. Until a week later, she went in the hospital. Now, she didn't die, thank God, but because she was in the hospital almost a week, so they put her on inhalers. They said she didn't have COVID, but she had every symptom. I mean, I don't know what she had, but she was on all these inhalers, things like that. And then I'm like, you know what? She wouldn't qualify for that policy. And now I don't feel guilty. I'm like, I did a good job. And she's like, man, I'm so glad you taught me into that, or whatever, you know, her verbiage was. But I did that, and then I got a bunch of age leads, 145 age leads. These were all leads 3 years old and older. And I thought my goal was not to make money with them. I just wanted to practice. I sent out letters, and actually I did make a sale from a lady who called me from the letter I sent out. She was the daughter of the lady. And she was like, so glad I found you. But anyway, my moment of truth was I'm going door knocking for the first time. So I'm sitting in Lowe's parking lot, and I am scared to death. I don't mean a little bit scared. I was scared to death. Like, because I'm not a door-to-door, knock-on-door kind of guy. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And at this point, I've already had a really good job offer in the lumber industry I've turned down. So I'm like, this is sink or swim. And I thought, man, if I don't go knock on these doors, I am never going to make it in this industry. So I had my list. I always leave with a list. Like I got my list, and I went to the first door, petrified, knocked on the door. I know the house. I was just by there the other day to see somebody else. The lady comes like, who are you? Like, you filled out this card. You know, my name's Eric Brown. I'm here to deliver the information you requested. And she's like, I've got Globe Life. I've got Globe Life. I've got Globe Life. Bam. And I was like, whew, that wasn't so bad. I was like, that wasn't so bad. And so I went to the next one. And by the third one, I'm like, this is okay. I can do this. Matter of fact, it's kind of enjoyable. I love meeting people. And, you know, I just talk to people. And so did my 19 door knocks, which doesn't sound like a lot when you're in the city, but for me, that's about 85, 90 miles where I live. There's only 12,000 people in our whole county. I was the next county over. It's not much bigger. But the weird thing was in the afternoon, 5 of the people I went and door knocked were deceased. And I felt like a grief counselor. And the one lady, I remember, I just went in, I knocked, and I said, I'm here about this card so-and-so sent in. And she's like, she starts crying. She's like, he died last year. And I'm like, well, I said, you know, I'm so sorry. And we just talked and interacted and tried to comfort. And I said, well, may I ask you, did he ever get any insurance? Because obviously he was interested. And she goes, no. I go, what did you do? And she goes, we all had to contribute and do cremation. And I was like, wow. So, and then there was this lady who, it was her birthday that day. And I was so excited to see her on her birthday. It was like 79, 80 years old. And I get to the house, and they were getting ready to go to the cemetery. She had died a month earlier. And I was like, wow. Fortunately, she did have life insurance, and she was, you know, these are 3-year-old leads. She was trying to get a little more. But, you know, doing those 5 were like, you know, 5 people. And I'm like, yeah, that's why we do what we do. These are real people with real needs. So I did the door knocking, got through that. Leads started coming in. I do need a lead. I was buying per 1,000 and it was working great. Recently, the response rates dropped, so I moved into a per lead price. But just started, working the leads. My first business really was helping people who had messy insurance problems. They had bought policies, the policies had never arrived, the billing was messed up, all kind of crazy stuff. And it was kind of trial by fire. You kind of jump in and do things. But in the first 2 weeks, wrote, I think, 6 policies the first couple weeks. And I had like 60 leads. So I'm thinking, I got to jump. And I'm working for my dad at this point. And so I'm like, if I don't keep momentum, this thing's going to die. And I got these leads. I better go. And so I met with my dad, my sister. I said, look, I started this insurance business. I've been trying to keep it on the down low, but I've got momentum. If I don't go, it's going to, I got to go. And my dad's a businessman. He's an entrepreneur. I tried to keep everything kind of secret and work the next county. My first direct mail lead guy that I sold drives across the river and has breakfast with my dad every morning, which I think was the Lord. And so I was like, I guess this cat's out of the bag, because he's like, I'm going to tell your dad, son sold me insurance. I'm like, okay, all right. But my dad was like, yeah, I know you've been selling. He said, whatever you need to do, you just do. He was so supportive of me. And my dad's a lot of the reason I'm successful because of an entrepreneurial mindset. Like, I've literally seen we think what we do is hard. Insurance is really not that hard. I mean, my dad built a lumber business from the ground up. He hurt his back. I saw my mother put my dad's boots on and tie them for him so he could go to work. So I've seen hard work. This really isn't that hard. But, my dad was supportive. And Dad his complaint about salesmen, he gets a lot of salesmen. And he's like, problem with salesmen, they just won't listen to you. They just don't listen. And I thought, and I could tell, and I'm talking, he's spending $250,000, $500,000, a lot of money. And I always knew they weren't making the sale because he would be like, hey, Eric, show this guy around. Or show these group of guys around. Like Caterpillar sent a bunch of guys to him, white shirts. They're all playing on their phones. They're not talking to my dad about his business. He's like, hey, show them around. I'm like, they're not getting the sale. But so anyway, he's helped me there. And my first full Saturday before I went full time, I'll give you paint that picture. I'm gonna say I'm looking on time here. I don't want to keep you. Okay. But my first full Saturday, I went out. I was part time, and I was still at the mill with my dad. And so I go out. And the first lead is an 85-year-old lady. And she's got $5,000 in whole life coverage. She wants more because she wants to be buried. And her son's involved. So her son lives next door. So I'm like, well, if your son's involved, he probably needs to come over. So he comes over, and he is not happy. He said, I thought they would call. I thought they would send mail. I was like, nope, they sent me. And David is they. So that's whenever, because David told me to go, because you really don't have a boss. And so we do that. And this guy is coarse. Like, I can do better than that price. I know I can do better than that. I'm like, okay, So, well, this is, and I turn the computer around. I show him the different price points. And I'm giving you the best I can get. And then they pulled out a card, well, we want to pray about it, which now I would be like, well, I'll step outside and let you pray about it. But back then I was like, look, man, I was tired. I'm new. I'm not arguing with God. So I said, well, y'all pray about it. I'll get back to you. I thought I'd never see him again. I did follow up an email to the son, and I followed up a card to the mother and said, hey, whatever you do it before you turn 86. So I did that. It ended earlier than I thought. And I thought I knew I'd seen a new lead come in that morning that was down the road. So I checked and I'm looking, okay, I got this new lead. I'll door knock that one. And it's kind of in a little ravine. And I go there, I knock on the door, and the lady answers the door with a gun. and she goes, "Don't you make a wrong move." And I'm like, I go, "Ma'am, you don't have to worry about a thing. I'm here about this pink postcard." And I said, my job's just to deliver information. I'm more than happy to deliver it, but if you're not comfortable with that, I'm totally okay too. And she said, "Yeah, I did fill that out." "Well, come on in." I'm like, okay. And she really didn't know why she had filled the card out. She didn't know how much insurance she had. So we got to looking. I said, "Well, give me your policies." And, she told me who she thought she had them with. We had to make calls, found out what she had. And I couldn't figure out, why. She didn't even know why she filled out the card. And then I asked, being new, I have no idea. But I said, "What happens if your husband dies?" And she goes, "If he dies, I lose the house because I need his income." That's what I said. That's probably deep in your heart what you were thinking. So the problem was he wasn't there, and he was having a pretty big medical test that looked like to me it was. So I said, "Look, you've got to get him past that test, and then call me." And I followed up again with a note: "Hey, praying for you. Once you get past the test, give me a call. Let's figure out what we can do." And anyway, thanked her. In the card, I told her, I said, "Thank you for not shooting me. Please keep answering the door with the gun to keep the other insurance agents away." Because, what was funny is while she was going to look at her policies, she left me at the kitchen table and it was a big gun. She just left it on the kitchen table with me. And I'm like, "Karen, I don't care how much you trust me. You shouldn't leave anybody at your kitchen table with a loaded gun." Anyway, I'll get back to her. Then I went to the next was an appointment. The first was appointment, door knock appointment. This lady needed insurance, and we wrote her. It was pretty simple. Then the last appointment was a kind of a crotchety 82-year-old. The house was filled with smoke. His wife had severe COPD. She had just fallen. She was bleeding. He took her in the next room. She's moaning in the next room while I'm trying to do the presentation. And I should have just said, "Let me come back a better day." But I went home, so I'm 1 for 4. And I'm thinking, if I was a little more skilled on the fourth one, the first one, I'm like, 1 for 4, 250. It won't keep you in the game, won't get you in the Hall of Fame. But later on, it was funny. First was I get a call from the gun lady's husband. "Would you come to our house? I'm out one day. Would you come to our house?" His tests were all cleared up. We did the presentation, showed him what he could get. They decided what to get. So now he's covered. So if he dies, she can keep the home. Then he goes, "You got to see my brother and his wife. They've just lost their insurance. They had it's like an indexed universal life policy, and the cost of insurance had gone up greater than the savings rate, and it had lapsed because they just kept sending the same amount in every month, not realizing that the price had gone up. And so we were able to get them covered. So I had those. So now this 1 for 4 day, I've written 4 policies off of. And then in May, we were at dinner. I still remember where we were, and I get a desperate call from the son of house number 1. He's like, "Would you come see us ASAP?" He goes, "I'm tired of dealing with these other insurance agents. Would you?" He goes, you've dealt with us so well," which all I did was 1 presentation, an email, a card. And then one day when I was in the area, I stopped by and said, "Hey, have you and your mom thought about it yet?" And he's like, "No." He goes, "We'll get back to you if you ever do." And I was like, "Look, I'm not going to bother you. If you ever need me, call me." It was kind of like I'm not going to come back and harass you. But I guess these other guys were coming up from Durham and Raleigh, and they were just pestering him. And I think the bottom line, they weren't getting their day 1 coverage either. But so now my 1 for 4 day has turned into 5 policies. And I don't know, I feel just super, super grateful. Obviously, I've had 0 for 10 a couple days 0 for 10, 1 for 9s. My philosophy is the way I mentally handle things is I don't ask myself about how many sales I make. I ask myself, did I do what a great agent would do today? That's my number one question. Did I do what a great agent would do? What would a great agent do today? My second thing I ask myself is, did I give that family the best opportunity to get the insurance they need with my level of experience? Because I'm still a rookie. I'm learning. I think I'm about 70 to 80% effective as I could be. I've got a lot of room for improvement. But so at the end of every day, I kind of ask those two questions. And the other thing I do is mentally, I go, if this person were my mother or my father or my sister or my brother, what would I recommend and how would I interact? And sometimes that means you tell them, when you look at everything and you hear their goals, and a lot of people don't know what they have. And my example here is I had an older guy, and Brian, you were with me. Remember that guy we saw? He was in his 80. He had 20-some thousand in whole life insurance, and he really didn't know what he had. So I was like, bring your policies out. We add them up. It came out to 20, and what are your goals? He had everything he needed. I go, what do your children say? And he goes, my children tell me, don't worry about getting more insurance, Dad. And I was like, I looked at everything. I wanted to make a sale. He goes, what do you think? I said, honestly, if you were my dad at his age, I said, I would take that $80 a month and I would have fun with it. You've got that. And so sometimes he goes, I like the way you think. And, but sometimes you're doing that. You're not, it's not trying to force feed life insurance to people who have enough. So, I don't know. What do you think, Dave? Is that good enough? All right.
Pretty good.
All right. All right.
So we're going to do a Q&A with Eric here. So you guys have any questions about leads, how he runs his appointments? Anybody?
Oh.
Yes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
It doesn't sound like you called to make an appointment first.
Oh, I didn't get into that. When I started, I was making calls. I wanted to be in the field 5 or 6 days a week. I got big goals, and I wanted to be in the field 6 days a week. So I was running appointments and appointment setting at night. I know some people appointment set one day, run appointments the next day. So I was doing that, and one of my conditions of satisfaction is I want my evenings free. On most evenings to have dinner with my wife. And it's why I love the senior market. I run appointments during the day. I do a few evenings, but not a lot. So I realized to hit my goals, I need an appointment setter. So after 2 weeks, actually 1 week of full time, I hired an appointment setter. And she's never set appointments before. So we're both learning. Her fiance used to work for me in the lumber business, and she had just graduated college. So, yeah. So she.
Actually door knocking, you're going on appointments?
I do appointments and door knocking. I do hybrid. Probably when I count, 50% of my sales are from appointments, 50% from door knocks. Yeah. Yes, sir.
How do you compensate your appointment setter?
I pay her hourly. I know, and I'm looking into ways to incentivize and do some different things, but I just started her hourly. Yes.
Are you running into any COVID concerns?
Yeah, kind of where we're at, it's real weird. I carry my mask in my hand. I back off. I say, I've had my vaccine. If you want me to wear my mask, I will. And most people say no. The only time I really got sideways and I lost a sale, the husband had no insurance. He lost his employer-provided insurance. So he's meeting with me, and his wife comes home from work, and she is livid that we're not wearing masks. And so, I lost that deal. But, I don't know. I just was what it was. Yes.
Did you provide your appointment setter with the script, or did she figure that out?
No, I provided the script. Yeah. And then the other thing I do that I think is, for me, is strategic, and it's kind of going back, planning for challenges, is I leave every day with appointments, and then I've got door knocks already laid. I use a Badger Maps, and I lay out my route before I leave, because I don't want to think about it when I'm in the field, because your emotions will lie to you. You're too tired. Maybe that last appointment was like a kick in the gut. They no-showed. You're upset. I mean, I give myself maybe 30 seconds to a minute to take a deep breath and get over it. And then I got door knocks to go in that area. So I know some people don't like appointments. They say appointments can be disappointments, but there are a lot of sales I wouldn't have made if I didn't have an appointment based on their schedule and mine. And the one time I had 3 appointments, and I knew I was 50-50 on whether the first guy would show up. I was certain the second lady was going to show up, and the third one I was, pretty sure. So I did my door knock route around the first one, but not around the second one. The first one was waiting on me, highly motivated to buy. The second one called me and canceled and ghosted me ever since. And so when that second one canceled, I didn't have any door knocks around her. So I'm sitting in McDonald's parking lot trying to, pull cards out and all that. And I'm like, I'm never doing that again. So I make sure I always have door knocks around my appointments. And they're routed, and I can flex, like I can adjust, but I've got, so I printed out list, and then I got on my phone my map. And sometimes, you hit, usually I leave with no less than 21, 22 stops routed out for the day.
Weasel, bat,
Badger, another rodent-looking thing. Badger Maps.
Eric, what if an appointment cancels?
As far as?
Well, you set the appointment on the phone, or you set a preset appointment and they call to cancel?
They call to cancel.
Do you still run it?
Actually, what I do, and we got to work on it a little bit, because I need to get Michaela not to answer the phone when they call back. Early on, like when it was just me setting appointments and they call back, I never answered the phone. I'd still go to the appointment. Michaela answers the phone too much. And she answers the phone. But I will tell you this. I have a lot of, sometimes you tell yourself a story like they canceled because they don't want insurance, when they really canceled because they really did have a doctor's appointment they forgot about, or this or that. I had one guy, he canceled me like 4 times. But in his voice, I'm like, he seemed like he was really wanting insurance. So I was like, fine. I just kept on, I said, well, let me contact you again. I kept contacting. When we finally got together, he said, I was so worried you were going to think I didn't want to meet with you. But he really did have a lot of health issues. So his doctors were moving around and stuff. And so I would say that, you don't know why. This is where my coach works on me on assessments. Is your assessment grounded? All you know when somebody no-shows, they no-showed. You don't know why. You have no idea why. But our minds will go negative. Well, they didn't want to talk to me, or this or that. And I've done a lot of business where I've been no-showed. And usually when I'm no-showed, I'll call 3 times. I will leave a message, but I've gone back lots of times and gotten business. So, yeah, don't tell yourself a story.
Tell the story about the lady that canceled on you. Remember that one?
Which one?
Which one? The one you still went to anyway?
Oh,
Remember
yeah. It was early on, and I'm like, I'd made this appointment. It was actually my second week. It was right before I went full time. It was the thing that happened to let me know I could make it in this business. So I called this lady, and she's hesitant to set an appointment, but I'm really kind of assertive, and I set the appointment. And she calls back, and I'm sure she called back to cancel, but I will not check my voicemail. And I'm like, I'm going to go. So I show up and I knock, 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 and they act like nobody's home. I'm like, knock, knock, knock. And I just won't leave. And she finally comes out and I act like nothing happened. Well, I'm here about the appointment. Okay, come on in. And we sat down and we reviewed what she had. And I said, well, what are your goals? You know, what do you, and she really wanted a little more life insurance, but she was scared. She couldn't afford it. And just went through and she bought, and, you know, great customers. So, yeah, it's just, but I realized early on there was such a fine line between making a sale and not making a sale. Like some of the best clients were very resistant. Like, you know, you're having to sell the, you know, the door knock. And I don't know that I'm that, I just keep talking to them and asking them questions. And sometimes I'm not, you know, as good as I want to be, but, you know, and one of the questions I'll ask was, because they'll tell me, I don't know why I filled the card out, or I thought it was something else. And I'll kind of ignore that and go, did you fill the card out because you wanted to add more insurance or because you wanted to save money? And for some people, that's just a trigger. And they'll go, well, I actually want to, I'm paying this much. And sometimes they have really crappy policies, you know, where I can double their coverage and save them money. So, yes.
How important is it for your business for having a set system on what you do? Because I've noticed what you do every day, you've got a system, you've got a reason for everything that you do every day.
Yeah.
How much has that contributed to your success?
Probably a huge part of it, because I don't know that I'm always that great, but I'm in the field every day. And if you're seeing a lot of people, you're going to make sales. One of my, next to David's books, the most inspiring book on sales is Frank Betcher, How I Raised Myself from Poverty. And if you look at his numbers, this is in what, 1920 or something? He did 1,600, he called them calls, but I think they're more like door knocks. 1,600 door knocks. He did over 800 presentations, and he made 65 sales. You know, and I'm like, I've got a computer, I've got Google Maps, I've got Badger Maps, I've got telephone, I've got cell phone. And he was ecstatic over 65 policies. You know, he made $4,200 and some a year at a time where my great-grandfather made 10 cents an hour. So you look at, he was making big money, but he was, I look at all that and we call it rejection, but you look at all those people who didn't buy. You know, 800 presentations, 65 policies, and he made a great living. So I'm like, if I just keep seeing people, you know, I'm going to make a really good living. And if I get better, like Jeff said, I get better, I'm going to get better.
What's that author's name again?
Frank Betcher, Bettger.
Yeah, Frank Betcher, How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. There's another book that's older, or not as well known. I forget what it's called, but you'll find it if you look it up on Amazon. Also, bookfinder.com, guys, if you want those old classics that aren't necessarily at Amazon. That kind of searches all the books that are available. And if you put Frank Betcher's name in there, you'll find them. Then that one's more specific, the life insurance one, is just the second one. That one's also really good.
Yeah. And the analogy I use in my mind too is baseball. I wasn't a good baseball player. 3 things kept me from being good. I was slow, I couldn't throw, and I couldn't hit. But other than that, I'd have been a really good baseball player. But I heard Rod Carew talk about the longest slump of his career. He went 0 for 17. And he said, he said, you got to practice your craft. Like he was in the batting cage every day. And he said, you got to stay positive. He said, you know, he dealt with athletes who had great skill but weren't positive, and he dealt with those who were positive, but they didn't put the time in the batting cage. And he said when he was 0 for 17, finally, he said, I hit the ball in the infield one time in just the right spot, a high hopper, and I got on base. He said, and then in the same game, he dropped a little dinky bunt, and he got on base, and he said, I was back in the game. And there are times like, 2 weeks ago, I had 9 appointments. I went 1 for 9. And one day I was 0 for 5. And I went back over and I thought I'm a rookie, so that accounts. I thought and there were weird situations. I mean, it was kind of weird. And I thought, if I were a little more skilled, I might have gone 2 for 9 or 3 for 9. But, if I keep seeing people, and I did, kept seeing people, and you hit a day, you go 3 for 4, It's like, but you talked about system. That was your question. My system is, when I was doing both sawmill and insurance, I realized David goes, Eric, this is performance-based business. So when I came home from the sawmill, one thing is I got my truck totally cleaned out. And I'm like, I'm Eric, the insurance professional. So I decided I wear a blue shirt and khaki pants. That's my uniform. Blue is perceived as more professional when people look at you typically. So I'm like, I got my uniform. When I get out of that shower, I put that blue shirt on. I'm Eric, the insurance professional. So it's a mindset thing. But every morning, I'm up. I'm in my office at usually 7:30, sometimes 6 or 6:30. I got my route plan. We plan our route, plan the call list, take care of any paperwork, policies that have to be uploaded from the previous day in the field every day, 6 days a week. So yeah, I'm very systematic. But I was that way in college. Like I was in the library at 6:30, go to breakfast at 7:30, go to class at 8:30, go back, eat lunch, take a nap, get up, go back to the library, study, go to the lab, I was very systematic then. I'm very systematic now. One thing I do, I'm not on any social media. I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't do much with it, and I'm not involved with GroupMe a whole lot. I'm going to get back involved with GroupMe. My reason for getting off GroupMe, and I'll be flat out honest, I'm like 90% of the people on GroupMe are going to fail out of this business. Why would I want to listen to them? If I have a question, I'll ask David. So, but now I'm in a place where I feel like I know a little bit more, so I need to give back to the community where guys have a simple question, I can throw out a simple answer. But so I don't do social media. I do stop for lunch every day. I pack my own lunch, and I do stop, take 15, 20 minutes, eat lunch, clear my mind. I try not to work. Usually I'm doing email or something, but yeah, so and I'm usually home. What do you think, Janet? 5 to 7 o'clock most days. And I usually take 1 or 2 days and come home, try to get home a little early so I can get a run in. So it's not like, I'm not one of those guys, I'm not working till 10 o'clock every night. We're trying to get Medicare off the ground. I will study that till 8:30. I mean, it's always something to study or do. But, yes, ma'am.
On average, how much time do you spend at each appointment? And how much time do you allow between the appointments?
I'm a little, we have to drive so far sometimes between appointments. When I work the city, it's different. I usually allow myself an hour to hour and a half at the appointment. I give myself about that. But if you get like a couple, like the other day I had a couple, and they both needed, and the sales process was a little longer. I'm there a couple hours. So I don't know. I follow the script. Like I'm very disciplined with the script. The door knocking, not as much. I'm kind of like door knock and feel my way through that. I wasn't, and I'm getting better on the door knock of asking for the close. Is this afternoon a good time or should I come back tomorrow? Some sort of close on the door knock. But on that script, I follow that script to a T. And it's bailed me. I'll tell you a funny one is that first Saturday, I was doing the price point, and I was like, so we need to find the price that fits you best. If you could, if we could qualify you, could you afford $150, $200 a month? And this lady goes, hell no, are you trying to get thrown out of here? And then my crotchety old guy whose wife seems like she's dying in the other room, he was the exact same way. Hell no. And I'm like, I am doing something wrong. And then I looked at the script. I'm like, I'm not doing my script. Because the script is, I got to get in the moment here. But the script is the best insurance to have is the one that is going to be there when you pass. The one that's going to be there when you pass, Ms. Jones, is the one you can comfortably afford. Most of the people I see on fixed incomes, and none of them have a money tree in the backyard, unless you're the first one. And she's like, no, I don't have a money tree. All right, Ms. Jones, we're going to take a few moments and find the price point that fits best for you. If we could qualify you for $150 to $200 a month, could you comfortably afford that? And what shocked me, what stumps me, is when they say yes. Like the first client, the one that has breakfast with my dad, he spent the first 30 minutes telling me how broke he was. And I was like, and I didn't even frame it right. I just said, if we could qualify you, could you afford $150, $200? He goes, yes. I was like, well, what do I do next? And you never know, and you'll leave money if you don't do that script and really start at $150 to $200 a month. You're going to leave money on the table. Because you never know who's going to say yes, and you can't tell. And one other thing, David, it's important to me. I grew up in a trailer, and I grew up around a lot of poor people. And sometimes in our industry, there'll be the jokes about how the people's homes are. One of the attitudes I carry when I go into a home is I'm honored that they'll let me in their home and really treat their home with honor. Because I picture me coming to my house, would I let me in? Like, we're very protective of who we let in our home. And the fact that they'll have me in their home and trust me with something as personal as their finances, their family story. So I'm very and I've been in some, and one is, and your conditions, your core values will guide you. I had probably the worst sanitary situation I've ever been in. And it was bad, but the lady needed insurance, and I made a mistake on who I wrote her with. And they wanted to do a telephone interview. And this carrier had never asked to do a telephone interview. And so I called her and I said, you need to call this number and do this telephone interview to get the coverage. Well, I kept getting the email that she hadn't done the telephone interview, and I'm like, dear God, I don't want to go back to that house. And so I asked the question, well, what would a great agent do? Great agent would go back to the house. What would a great agent do? A great agent would give her every opportunity to get the coverage she needs. So I show back up, and I'm like, Ms. Jones, we need to do this. And she said, I've tried and tried. That number doesn't work. So I pull the email out, and I call the number, and it says, you're calling for the interview line, click. You're calling for and I try like 4 times, click, and I call customer service, and they send me on the loop, and I'm like, all right, Ms. Jones, we're done. I go, I can get you another company. I know you're going to get covered. It's going to be a little less coverage. Are you okay? She goes, I'm fine with that. And I go, I don't think that other company is going to cover you anyway. And I didn't after this. I knew they weren't if we couldn't get that call done. And so, but and the sanitary was so bad the first time, it literally made me sick, like I wanted to throw up. But the second time, I don't know, I was so focused on getting her covered and correcting my mistake that I got through it. But yeah, I just believe treating people's homes with honor and, being grateful they even talk to you. If they don't purchase, they don't purchase. It's nothing personal. But they let you in their home, they talk to you. So, all right. Any other questions? Yep.
How many carriers do you work with? I get confused if I have too many.
I've got 6. I'm Family Benefit Life is my number 1. Then I do Prosperity and Foresters, AIG, GTL, a little bit of MOO, but I'm even getting away from them at all. They're and I added Great Western because I'm running into guaranteed issue clients who've applied for AIG in the last year, and I can't do another AIG for a year. Yeah. What did I drop? Oh, that's my room card.
Oh, that's
Yeah, be lost without that. But yeah, and then, gosh, on Medicare, I do the big 4, Aetna, Anthem, Humana, United Healthcare, and then I added Heartland and GTL, and Emeritus for vision and dental. Just like I just do what they tell us to do, pretty much.
Okay. One more question? Brad, did you have a question? Yeah. Yeah.
How many leads do you generally run in a week?
As far as I was doing, I like 50 leads a week. You know, and that sounds like a lot face to face, but if you work 6 days a week and you average just seeing, door knocking 10 people a day, and that's conservative. You're going to door knock 60 doors. That's, so I mean, but yeah, I like the more leads, the better. And part of it, I'm a rookie. I need to see more pitches. If you got a veteran and they're better at closing than I am, they might be able to generate the same revenue on 25 pitches.
Out of the 50, how many do you close on average?
And I don't get 50 leads every week. I'd like to have them because I bought per 1,000 and that number is going down. I average closing 7 to 8 a week. So, yeah. But my dad is in the lumber business, so he buys like whole standing timber. And he said you can't run a sawmill without logs. And you cannot run an insurance business without leads. So I come from that mindset, like I'm not, it's a little nerve-wracking when you're cranking out $1,000 a week. The Medicare leads scare me more than the final expense. Like, I'm spending a lot of money in the last month and a half. But one of the things that's helped me is I have really good credits. So I've dumped a lot of money into leads. So, but I've invested a lot of money in leads. I'll say this. Yep. Any other questions?
Eric, thank you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.